Hello everybody, and welcome back to another YI video. Today we're going to be looking at Pacific Drive. This is a little bit of a sleeper hit, I think, for some, and a bit of a unusual one for others who may not really know what to make of this. But I was really intrigued by this game right from the start. It's essentially, as a quick overview, it is a roguelite car driving sci-fi survival game, I guess. It's set in an alternate universe world where in the Pacific Northwest of America some bizarre event happened and it created this zone. And if you're already thinking about Stalker, that is one of the inspirations. And basically the idea is that the zone is full of all kinds of weird anomalies, essentially. And there was lots of experimentation done back in the 60s and 70s, and something went horribly wrong, and the place has been closed off ever since. No one's been allowed in or out. But for whatever reason, you play as this unnamed delivery driver of some description. You end up driving close to the outer wall, and an event, an anomaly, pulls you through, and now you're trapped. And the only thing that you've got is this old, clapped out station wagon. And you have some people who communicate with you via the car through its radio system, who guide you around the zone, essentially. And you have a hub that is an old, basically, sort of maintenance station, garage type thing that's been set up. It was a base used by one of the people who speaks to you called Oppie over the radio, and that's where you will plan your missions and you will set out into different areas of the zone, and then it's just down to you exploring it and avoiding the hazards and getting out with resources and completing story tasks if that's the missions you're doing. Otherwise, you're just going out there and you're just getting resources to upgrade bits of your base and the vehicle itself and unlocking new schematics. And yeah, it's a game that it's one of those really nice games that pace isn't too enforced. You don't have to be running around in the early stages in the safer areas, let's say, of the map, with this kind of breakneck pace, trying to get resources and get out before things collapse. Because essentially, what the game cycle is you take your vehicle out, you pick a location, you go out there, and you look at the map and you see different buildings that denote the potential to have different resources, and then you plan your route there, you drive the car over, and you can get out the car and run around and pick up these resources. And you have a limited sort of inventory on your person and in the back of the car. Certain upgrades can increase this as you go through the game, but the idea is you're picking up all kinds of things like plastics and metals, glass, electronics, all these different parts, alongside other items like light bulbs and gears and iron sheets. And you can raid quite a lot of different stuff. There are broken down cars on the roadside which you can grind down for basic resources. You can check the boot, see what you can find in there, and you essentially just want to move around these maps and try to find as many resources that you need and then get the hell out. And to do that, there are these resources that are marked on the map, and you need to basically charge up let's just call it the flux capacitor. Essentially, you need the resources, you charge up the capacitor, and it allows you to then choose, when you're at a set distance away, to open up a portal that will essentially take you back to your hub, and rinse repeat. And there's a lot of mechanics going on here. The car in the early stages of the game is not very good. It doesn't drive very well. It's got very beat up parts on it. It will look like crap, but as you go along and you unlock new stuff like more reinforced car parts, better tyres, a new engine, better lights, and all these other things, like an improved battery and that kind of stuff, you will progress and get more capable of handling the areas, the terrain, and the anomalies with more confidence and less worry about parts of the car basically falling off. And the car basically acts as your life meter in a way, because if the car's ruined, if you can't get out, that's it, you're screwed. you have to be able to keep that car going so you can get out of the zone and get back. Your character can die. There are hazards that will kill you if you're not careful, and you have to play this balancing act. There are items you can bring along. You can heal yourself. You can repair the vehicle while you're out there with this weird stuff called repair putty, which basically is like a limited number of uses, and it'll repair individual sections of the vehicle. Yet, as I said, there's a lot of depth going on with a lot of the mechanics, and I think for some people it might just be deathly boring for some people because the game doesn't feature any kind of combat. The closest you get to combat is essentially just aggressive driving to avoid some of the anomalies, but a vast majority of it is just a case of just being a little bit more aware of your surroundings and careful, because there are some strange ones out there. You've probably, if you've ever seen a trailer, you'll see the ones that are called abductors, which are these weird blobs of bits of metal and other items, and they have like a magnet that will attach to your vehicle or yourself, and they'll just drag you in a random direction for a set time and then let you go, which can usually result in situations where it drags you, say, off the road down a hill into some trees and do quite a lot of damage to you, that kind of thing. So there are those kind of anomalies. There were like I think there was something bunny ones that they roll around and they attach to your vehicle, very similar to very reminiscent Half-Life 2's roller mines that would get stuck onto your dune buggy, and you'd have to like pick them up with a gravity gun and fire them off. Very similar type enemy. And then there are just more benign ones, things that will just cause rocks to float in the air, or some of the ground will just rise up. There's a few weird ones out there, and then there's a few that could be a bit more deadly if you're not careful, but they're not actively out to kill the player. They're just there. They just do their own thing. They move around. They just activate. And as you gather limb energy, as it's called, which is what you charge at the capacitor for, that will cause more of these things to spawn, because essentially what the energy is that you're collecting is creating a pocket of stability. That's why the level exists. And by you taking that, you're destabilizing the level. But you can only stay within a zone for so long before the stability just ends up falling in on itself. So you can't infinitely spend time, but I think personally, you get a generous amount of time to be able to have a look at the map, plan your route, grab enough stuff, and then get out before really getting stuck in the nitty-gritty. Because when stability drops, you don't want to be in the map when that happens, because it gets horrible. Your car takes constant damage, and eventually you will die. Dying isn't the end, though. It's not a permadeath type game or an Iron Man type game. Well, if you die, you go back to the area with your car completely ruined, and you patch it up as best you can, and you can go back to that area and grab your stuff from your old car. It's weird, but there's a lot of weird stuff going on. The story is very I don't want to say convoluted. There's a very in-depth narrative going on between the three characters, who are in constant conversation with each other as you're driving around and completing missions, and you learn more about what happened to them, to the zone, why it exists, what their theories are, all these things. The voice acting's really good. It's the three characters are quite endearing as you go through. They have their own sort of issues with each other, and they all, I think ultimately they're just kind of a bit stir crazy being in this location for so long, and there's just, because you're something new, it's sort of given them more life to be able to come back and reanalyze and rethink and apply some of the scientific theories after all this time. And there's this idea that the car itself isn't necessarily just a car, that it is also some kind of entity. There's a lot of weird stuff, as I said. There's it feels like it could just plop right into something like the Half-Life universe, for instance. You could imagine this being after the Combine invasion. This is just an area where something went wrong, and it's just this is completely separated from everything else that's going on. A bit like Aperture Science Portal compared to the narrative of the main Half-Life games. It's got that kind of feel to it. There's a sort of melancholy to the areas. obviously with no other kind of human interaction in the world itself, there's this sort of, yeah, as I said, this sort of quiet, melancholy aspect to the whole world as you're sort of navigating very picturesque locations and some very, very good sound design. There's still a creepy atmosphere, despite the fact that there's no creatures are gonna lurch out of the forest or the fog to come after you. You do always get this sort of pervading sense when you're moving around outside the car that something might be watching you, or that something is moving around out there, but there never really is. It's really good. They do a good job with the audio and the visuals, despite the fact that it isn't a game that is using top end of everything these days. We're not talking about it using like the latest RTX and some of the other like shaders and that kind of thing. It still looks remarkably pretty. It's got a really good soundtrack as well. Just again, very fitting kind of music for the sort of that Pacific Northwest kind of feel to it. And yeah, overall, I really like it. If there's one thing that if you like single player titles that you can just sort of play at your own pace and you can do a couple of runs when you've got the time, Pacific Drive is one of those games. It's really nice. It's not massively expensive either. It's another one of those games that have been coming out of recent that are in that kind of price sweet spot that definitely have a lot of effort and a love from the development team, a bit like Helldivers 2 for instance, where they're not asking for a huge amount of money and they're still producing just a solid game. I mean, this isn't the realms of AAA and all this crap from the big publishers. This is just a small title that has a pretty unique not gameplay but premise, and it's quite interesting to go around, and you can spend a long time just sort of tinkering with stuff and looking around and upgrading your base and painting the car, for instance. And yeah, there's a lot of little bits and pieces in there. I've quite enjoyed it. It's been one of those titles that I've gone back and forth with every now and then, but where I've only got an hour before having dinner or something. That's the kind of title I'll hop onto and just get a bit of time wasted driving around, finding tons of plastic that I don't know where to store because I've got so much of it, for instance, and then coming back and seeing if I can use any of my resources to build new parts for the car or fixing a quirk, kind of thing. Quirks are weird, by the way. These, like the car, as I said, is possibly alive or it has its own thing going on, and it has its own quirks, and you have to kind of diagnose and fix them. There's weird. There's lots of odd little things in there. There's a lot in it as well that I really sort of playing it and experiencing it is better than just someone just outright spoiling a lot of the kind of neat little parts of the game. So yeah, Pacific Drive. I definitely recommend it. Did quite enjoy it, and yeah, I'll definitely be playing more of it in the future. So I may even stream it on occasion, just because it's one of those, yeah, just sort of chill, relaxed little titles. But yeah, till then, as always, thank you for listening to my ramble, seeing some gameplay, general footage of the game running, and yeah, I'll catch you all on the next one. Thanks again. Have a good one all. Bye bye.